Divorced men. What moment with your former wife made me think, yep, I'm asking this girl to divorce me? Story 1. During the last year and a half of our marriage, she became extremely psychologically abusive. She was a narcissist, controlled my every move, would isolate me, refused physical contact, was just an extension to her life, was not allowed to talk to any female, was not allowed to hang out with any friends, or she would ignore me for up to 5 days at a time. Double standards everywhere, verbal abuse, and the list can continue, but it hurts to think about. The last straw for me was when she threatened to unalive me because I came home from work late, even though she knew I would be home late. It was just a little too late for her, and she also threatened to hit me the same day. This was the second time this happened, and talked with several people at work about it, and they suggested that I run. Had text of the threats on my phone and contacted a lawyer that same week. She agreed to sign since I told her I would take severe legal action if she didn't. Thankfully, no children, and it was a clean divorce, and I'm happily divorced. And we start off with a very clear-cut one. Abuse can happen from anyone. Abuse can happen to anyone. I wonder how long this relationship lasted before all this abuse started happening. I'm curious as to what she was like before it happened. Story 2. I endured a physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive relationship for over 6 years with my first wife, 4 of which we were married. There were many, many instances that should have caused our marriage's demise. The proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, though, was 8 days after had major oral surgery. Due to a freak medical occurrence, had to have 28 teeth cut out and 2 holes drilled into my sinus cavities from top of the back of my gums. She was in a grocery store parking lot and asked her not to start an argument in the store because it's a small town and was so tired of being with those people. Her reaction was to backhand me in the mouth 6 times. Or at least I counted 6 times because I'm pretty damn sure lost consciousness. I just remember waking up when we were pulling into our driveway while she's freaking out because my face is against the window and blood is coming from my mouth like a fountain. I'm confused here. Did he have the surgery first and then she hit him? Or did he have to have the surgery because she hit him? Either way, it doesn't excuse her hitting him, especially in a public place. I'm glad he finally stood up and decided not to let himself get abused that way, or indeed at all. Story 3. I could say it was the day I found the texting with a doctor from her hospital, but no, knew even before that I'm a widower and visited the cemetery twice a year to visit my first wife's grave. The first wife's brother asked me to send him a picture of the headstone as he wanted to post something on social media on the anniversary of her death to say something in her memory. Happily obliged and sent him the pic. My second wife gets home later that night and is ticked at me because she had found out on social media that some other woman had her last name. I was dumbfounded as she knew I was married before, knew that she had my last name, never mind that other woman had the name first, and yet somehow found a way to make yet another thing about her. Everything was always about her, and apparently nothing was off limits to her narcissism. That was the moment I realized this is not someone I could be with every day. How could she be serious about this? It just makes the whole process of the woman taking the man's last name seem completely meaningless. Judging the strength of your bond being based on you having the same last name is ludicrous. This woman is freaking out over words. Story 4. My best friend was in the Air Force stationed in South Korea and got married right before he left. After about 6 months, he flew her out to visit. First night, when she was there, she would go outside to smoke more and more. She left her phone, and he looked at it when someone texted her. She was texting 2 guys on base asking, "Do you want to bed me when my husband goes to work?" He got out of the Doge when she went home. Turns out she was cheating on him the whole time he was gone, and was going to text him she wanted a divorce anyway. Edit. Realized said Doge, not Dodge. Can't change it because it's funny and comments wouldn't make sense. Edit. Forgot to add that she tried to spin it back on him and was ticked he looked at her phone and didn't trust her. Very sad. Such true. Story 5. Me and my ex were always having ups and downs. Cutting up my clothes when I was out with friends, cutting my hair when I was asleep, random violence and screaming fits, the usual. We did the normal things couples were supposed to do, and it seemed to prolong the episode for a time. We bought a house, for example. Well, after we had the house, the next thing we needed was a cat. She loved it very much when it was a kitten, but as it grew up, it became more independent. It's a cat, duh. and she couldn't take this and became aggressive towards it. I remember walking in one day and she picked up the cat and threw it up in the air. It bounced off of the ceiling, and then I threw her butt out of the house, bouncing her junk off the curb. I still have the cat. Story 6. I left for work at 6 a.m. and forgot to unplug the toaster. When I arrived home at 6 p.m., I was given the "everything you've ever done to tick me off" speech, just for leaving the toaster plugged in. I asked her what she did all day that prevented her from unplugging it herself. Another "I'm a jerkwad" speech. I said something to the effect of "quit acting like your freaking mother." She threw the cat at me. A cat. She threw a freaking cat at me. Edit. Words and such. Edit 2. Scuba Steve went on to live with me after the official separation and divorce. Okay, first, the cat named Scuba Steve is hilarious. Did the cat like water? Is that why it was named Scuba Steve? Second, this and the previous story points out how animal abuse can lead to more dangerous behavior. I'm glad these people nipped this relationship in the bud and ended it before anything more serious happened. If they were willing to be that abusive to a cat, it wouldn't be long before they'd start being abusive towards them that way. Story 7. When after being in Afghanistan for 8 months, May '02 to November '02, she was missing, had my car, finding random women with kids and pets living in the apartment I paid for, the electricity cut off, no money in my bank account, a pay advance authorized by my commander, and a friend telling me to go easy on her because she was 5 months pregnant with his kid. And he had had heart surgery to remove some kind of cysts from his heart just before I left. He was 2 pacemakers and basically half a heart. If scared him, he could have died saying that was the moment. Story 8. I found out she cheated on me, and upon me confronting her to discuss it, she manipulated me into thinking she was feeling self-unaliving. Then she admitted the manipulation. Done. She may have once been a nice person. That's all gone now. Edit. Forgot to mention, found out because she had left her Facebook open with a conversation about her pregnancy scares to a friend. We hadn't had spicy time in a bit more than a month. Story 9. When she falsely told our marriage counselor that I punched her. The next week, she denied saying it and accused our counselor of lying. He gave me a "you should leave this relationship" look. Took that look as permission from a professional that definitely wasn't making the wrong decision. Got divorced and never looked back. Legitimately feared for my safety towards the end. Not that she would hurt me, but that she would make a false accusation to the cops or a crazy friend. Yes, that's a big one. There are some things that a cop has to automatically respond to. If someone makes an accusation like that, they automatically have to take some action. It's sad that this person has to live in fear of the person that they loved and married making this kind of action toward him. Story 10. When my stepdaughter became a teenager, my ex ramped up the nutso. She had always been an impatient, angry screamer of a parent. But as my stepdaughter became a young woman, my ex just went crazy with envy or something. I know lots of moms have a hard time with teenage daughters, but their base level patience is so much better than my ex's was. Threats of cutting hair in the middle of the night while my daughter slept, pulling hair, slapping face, ridiculing in front of her friends, swinging something that missed and put a hole in the wall. I was out with the kids. Story 11. When I, as the only earner in the house, was denied buying a new pair of work boots in December because she needed the money to buy vaccines for the puppies. She bred dogs as a hobby. I was a framing carpenter in Ohio. My current work boots had toe stoles in them. No soles. Needed them. Her puppy vaccine story was bull patties. Her hobby was dogs, but she was a pro at popping pills. That's what she needed the money for. Was done with her by March. Story 12. I used to love to do chores for her because she loved being taken care of. When she stopped noticing, it started hurting. Then one day we made a bench for our entryway out of barnwood. Took about 40 hours of work. She walked in the house after work that day and sat her purse on it and proceeded to start the fight where she told me that she was mad she got married to me. She stormed out of the house grabbing her purse. Never noticed the bench was there. Knew then, but I think she already knew. I'm sorry that happened. That story, however, is almost poetic. He put in so much work into something for her, and she just didn't even notice. She was so busy arguing about how she felt and how she didn't feel like she was treated right that she didn't even notice what was already being done for her. I'm glad he recognized the signals there and got out. Story 13. My wife was around less and less, had to be free to live her life, go out with her friends. More often than not, she would call me to pick our daughter up from daycare, after promising to pick her up and have some girl time. Just tell her I'm working late or not feeling well. She always had something better to do, and the kids were old enough to know better. Went to pick our daughter up one day. When they called her name, she ran over until she saw it wasn't Mom again, slumped her shoulders, and slowly walked over to ask what's her excuse this time. That was the breaking point. Told her to get out. Even helped pay her security deposit to get her out. Story 14. She let me know she was pregnant and wanted my permission to tell all her girlfriends during a girls' night out. Since I knew there was no possible way it was my child, she was also unknowingly admitting to having an affair. I can do math. She can't. It was with her boss. Lawyered up the next day, and he ate her alive in court. Got primary custody of our child we already had, and child support, and a sheriff's notice that she had to vacate my home in 30 days. Never knew she could be that stupid. Story 15. We flew across the country for her sister's wedding. She didn't say a word to me the entire time since we had parked at the airport. Once we landed at our destination, we walked to baggage claim. Absolute silence, proceeding for several hours now. At the carousel, I picked up her bag when she took it out of my hand and calmly stated, "None of my family knows you're here." I told them they came alone. She walked out of the airport and left me there. Narcissistic personality disorder made for some really fun scenarios. Just flat out ignoring him? Not even telling them he's coming? Just selfishness on the highest degree. Should have just gone back home and packed and left. Story 16. Not a wife, but a fiancé. Just called it off because we were house hunting and she kept wanting to look at houses that would accommodate an extra permanent guest, her estranged father whom she was wanting to reinitiate ties with, but wouldn't admit to it. Found out from a buddy that she was wanting me to lay out the money for the down payment and then was going to break it off herself and fight like hell to keep the house to herself. 2 years down the drain, but a lifetime of a fortunate near miss. Story 17. When she asked me to take the kids on some errands, has kept me celibate for months, saying she is asexual now, and once I leave, invite some guy over to tongue lash her for 45 minutes and then drop a load inside her in the bedroom without a condom. All on the day before Father's Day. Thanks, Amy. Not divorced yet. This happened last week. Her life is in such shambles, and I'm not even mad. Story 18. For the first one, I was working late and the daycare called and asked if I'm picking up my kids. Left work to go get them. When I got home, she was gone. Didn't hear anything from her for 2 weeks. For the second one, the third time I bailed the house out of foreclosure because she wouldn't pay the bills, even though there was money in the accounts to cover it. Closed the account, handed her cash for the mortgage, packed a bag with my kids, and left. Just disappears for 2 weeks? Were these her kids that this guy was picking up? It's amazing how some people who are parents really shouldn't be parents. Story 19. We had a trial separation and lived apart for a month. During this time, I vented off some of my frustrations to come to find out said friend was bedding my wife behind my back. They both attempted to manipulate one of my best friend's emotions so that I wouldn't think anything suspicious. But man, my intuition always had my back. Always trust your gut, folks, even when your head isn't where it should be. Story 20. We were already not speaking. It was Thanksgiving. Knew she wasn't going to bother, but made a turkey, and whatever goes with turkey for my then 8-year-old daughter. I had the turkey out on the counter to rest after roasting. My beloved bride walked in, calmly threw the turkey in the kitchen trash can, and walked out. I had to take my kid to freaking Golden Corral for Thanksgiving. That was it. It was done. Story 21. When we had a much-needed family trip planned to Mexico, and due to a flight the week before, she told me she didn't want to come on the trip, and took my 2 daughters and her mother for a week. She was a stay-at-home mom, so paid for the whole trip months before. As soon as I knew the plane left on time, marched into a lawyer's office, served her the papers the day after they got back home. And where did that come from? Were they on speaking terms before this? How selfish can you be? Had they agreed to go together on this trip before? If she needed some time apart, she should have just said so. Or was she also just being greedy and wanted the trip to Mexico? Story 22. When I saw the text from her lover that said something to the effect of, "I miss your anatomy in my butt," and "I rubbed one out in the gym shower thinking of you." Shrew never sent me text like that in 10 years of marriage. Still have the text saved somewhere in a divorce file. This was not the first affair, but it was the one that finished it for me. Story 23. I was at work and got a call from my grandparents that she had shot our dog. Zoe was laying on the bed with her. We were separated before that for other reasons, but that's when I ponied up a few grand and went to an attorney to file. I really miss her. The dog, I mean. Story 24. I was working on a mother-daughter scrapbook as a Christmas present for her. Was going through her Google Photos account looking for pics of them together. Came across a selfie she took with some dude laying on her. Confirmed her second affair. Knew it was over the moment I saw it. That has messed me up pretty good. Oh, what a way to discover. And this was when he was doing something nice for her. Did she not care? Did she even know the photo was actually being shared on something more public? And also, this guy mentions this was the second affair. This guy went through some stuff. Story 25. When she informed me she was cheating on me and leaving me for that guy. That guy was engaged. Not to her. Oddly enough, he did not break off his engagement. Edit. Wow. I thought this thread was dead when commented. Like to add, this was 6 months into our marriage. Together for 3 years, but that last 6 months, she couldn't keep it together. Story 26. The moment I realized that her excuses for cheating with multiple other guys were all about blaming me and demolishing my spirit so she could continue doing so while I fully supported her financially. It was the click that I needed to lawyer up and get the hell out. She had almost broken me, but I finally saw the only regret she had was getting caught. Story 27. My son was watching Netflix on her phone with me, and her boyfriend texted her. It was 12 at night, and he said he missed her and couldn't wait to see her again. Typical now. I confronted her, and she denied and said that her friend's daughter was texting my son. My son is 3. The daughter in question was 2 and barely speaking. Yeah, that was just pathetic. She actually tried to blame the kids. She really had no respect for this guy's intelligence, let alone any respect for their relationship. That guy needed to get out of there quick. Story 28. When the cops showed up and arrested me while I was washing dishes, found out after being taken to the station that she had claimed that I had been beating on her and my 5-year-old son, was acquitted in court a month or so later. The situation was so messed up that the cops actually testified on my behalf. Story 29. When she decided our dog was annoying her and sold him on Craigslist, which she then used the money to buy herself a non-refundable purse, instead of making any mention of her feelings so we could come up with a solution. Story 30. Finding her on Christmas Eve, still texting a coworker whom she claimed she was no longer in contact with, having been busted texting him previously also. I cleared out of there like a blackjack dealer. Ho, ho, ho. Nope, that's it. Get out of there now. She lied to you before, she's lying to you now. No respect for you. Give yourself the gift of freedom. Story 31. She made me watch Oprah, and there was a quiz. Is your marriage okay or not? In my head, I saw 7 or 10 items that were not okay. She didn't see any. We had already been to counseling. Story 32. I was a Lance Corporal bringing home scraps for a paycheck to an unemployed wife who one day brought home a brand new Lexus IS350 because she got a good deal on it. Apparently, was supposed to pay the $800 a month bill. I didn't think that was a good deal. Story 33. When my 2-year-old was learning to talk, he would consistently say another bloke's name. Apparently, he was there the moment I left for work till he got home. Single dad for 5 years with primary custody now. All of these stories have been showing clean breaks. I'm glad all of these got resolved very quickly. So far, nothing seems to be dragged out further in the courts. I'm glad all these stories seem to be resolved quickly. Story 34. The morning I saw a picture of some dude's anatomy on her phone. She was classy enough to bring him to the divorce proceedings. Your Honor, I would like to present Exhibit D into evidence. Story 35. When my buddies approached me to complain that she kept sitting on their laps, wiggling and hoping for an erection. You have some good buddies. Story 36. When I found evidence of the last affair, as soon as I heard it, I knew that was the end, and there would never be anything else there. Ooh, not just an affair. I'm glad it was the last affair because he chose for it to be the last affair. Again, no respect for their relationship. It's so tragic. Story 37. When we went on a family vacation, I hoped she'd sleep the entire time so I could have fun with our son. Story 38. When she said, "You didn't pray hard enough, and that's why our son has cancer. That's why I'm sleeping with my prayer partner." Story 39. When I found the letter between her and my friend about their affair and how she couldn't wait to be away from me so they could be together. Yep, I knew then. So glad he discovered it. I'm sure he had words with his friend. Words at least. I can't believe he had to find out that way and have to deal with being lied to like that. Story 40. She required a much more varied selection of anatomy that I was able to provide, so she went out and acquired them herself while I was stationed overseas in the Air Force. Story 41. I was on deployment and she yelled at me for interrupting her family's celebration when I called on Christmas. Story 42. When she moved out while I was camping with two of our sons, and there was no discussion of whether her leaving was permanent or potentially temporary in her view. Just no notice whatsoever? No signals? No discussion? Was this guy actually not seeing any signs that were there? Or was she keeping everything so close to the chest that she just didn't make any noise at all? That's just shocking. Story 43. My neighbor's wife screaming "Putanal" downstairs after she caught my bride and her husband having spicy time in front of the fireplace. Story 44. When a friend's wife said to me, "You know your wife is sleeping with my husband." That's a pickup line if I ever knew one. Story 45. When she physically attacked me in front of our then 11-year-old son. I've been pondering the idea for a while. That was the clincher. Yeah, I'm glad that was the clincher. For any relationship, when one person decides it's okay to assault the other person, get out. Just get out. That's just a line that once you cross, you can never come back from. Don't let it happen again. Just get out. Story 46. In marriage counseling, me, I love you, ex, settled on you. Story 47. When she staged a robbery of our house so she could pawn all of my stuff for substance money. Story 48. Our daughter at 3 years old told us to stop yelling. Young kids can be perceptive. I think that was the signal for this guy that there was something up that was deeper than they could really see before. I'm glad he decided to listen to his kid and get out. I don't think any kid should be around that much yelling ever. Story 49. When I realized I didn't get along very well with her boyfriend. Story 50. The day I found texts to another man saying things like, "I miss you," and way mushier, more painful stuff. Story 51. I don't know why I thought these would be funny. This stuff is depressing as hell. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.